side of the ball.
Going, and gone, a home run. Rico Brogna hits a home run. Right center, the home run is gone, goodbye.
Great play, Brogna.
He's for real. Brogna, base hit, game over.
I'm Howie Rose. Today we're going one-on-one with former Mets first baseman Rico Brogna, who came along in 1994 and made an immediate impact when the Mets were managed by Dallas Green. And Rico, a local guy from Connecticut, great to see you again.
Great to be here, Howie. Thank you.
This is the first year you've not been involved in baseball for a long time, isn't it? What are you doing now?
Yeah, it's strange. 30 years or thereabouts. I'm going back to school and finishing up a master's degree. Knock on wood, I can finish it successfully, hopefully by the end of the summer, early fall. But I do miss it, and it's the first year I haven't been with a team. I was with the Phillies last year coaching and scouting. Before that, the Angels and other teams before that. But I do miss it. It's a lot of work doing a thesis and a capstone project, so maybe it's best that I focus on one thing at a time here. But at the same time, baseball is what I know, what I've done, and hope to get back into it soon.
You're getting into cybersecurity. Is there any correlation at all between life in baseball and what you now endeavor to do in cybersecurity?
Yeah, it's a good question and a good point, because I think I first started to get really interested in the computer stuff in 2014 and 15 when I was the information coach with the Angels and was the quality control coach. There's a lot of different names for that position around the league now, but there weren't other guys doing it. I was one of two. I think myself and one other person in MLB were doing it at the time. And what had happened, doing all the analysis and data and video and everything that entails that computer with baseball, at the time I got really interested in it. So I think there are some correlations. Really where I branched off in my schooling was more of intelligence and cyber intelligence and some international and even U.S. law with the internet and cyberspace. So some pretty cool stuff, but at the time when I started, my interest started, I should say, with the baseball experience that I had and, pounding the computer every day and every night trying to get information on how to beat the other team.
Well, his hands must be pretty good on the keyboard because they were great at first base for the Mets. And I'm not blowing smoke here, but Keith Hernandez left the Mets after 1989. And when you came along, that was, I think, the first time in those ensuing years that we looked at a first baseman and went, whoa, I mean, you were as good defensively as most first basemen that the Mets have had in their history, and yet you're a pretty good power hitter too. Which was closest to your heart, the bat or the glove?
First, thank you. I took a lot of pride in trying to play good defense. I thought it was a way to help the pitcher be more efficient, save pitches and everything. Allow your defenders to try to make plays they might not normally try to make, and throws they might not normally try to make because they didn't have the confidence in a first baseman. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it goes back to I played a lot of street hockey when I was a kid, and I loved to play goalie. Yep. So I was the kid with the glove and the plastic stick playing goalie, and I tried to just at the time block everything or catch it in the goalie's mitt. And I took that into baseball, but Keith Hernandez was awesome. I grew up around Keith Hernandez or watching Keith play first base, Don Mattingly with the Yankees. So the two guys, and I won't mention it too loudly, but they had the Red Sox on the other channels too. But Mattingly and Hernandez, two of the best ever defensively at first base. I was watching all the time. Had great role models to try to emulate, copy.
Did you ever get to work with Keith at all and get any pointers from him defensively?
We talked a few times, yeah. I tried to pick his brain whenever he was doing some TV on the road at the time. Most of it had to do with how did he hit left-handed pitching, because I did not do that well, and I felt pretty good around first base. The one thing we talked about at first was how aggressive he played on his bunt defenses, and actually would make plays on the third base line and would allow the third baseman and pitcher to stay home and do other things. So if they're bunting, they're bunting. And you don't want the pitcher necessarily making it, if you can get everything and allow the third baseman to stay home. So long story short, he said, just get in there. First of all, you might disrupt the bunt. Second, if he gets it down, you're a left-handed first baseman. You can make every throw on the diamond you need to make. So really, he taught me to just, or convinced me to be more aggressive on the bunt
Well,
plays.
Keith to this day talks about one of his favorite plays being one that he made in Cincinnati in 1986. In an obvious bunt situation, pitcher's batting, Keith is charging from first. He's practically in this guy's pocket, bunts it right to Keith, throws to third, starts a double play.
Yep.
Did you ever make a play anything like that, or was it a challenge to just get the guts to charge as aggressively as he did?
Well, you definitely have to initially get the guts to do it. And you have to convince everyone else on your team that it's okay too, because honestly, it's not the bunt play you work on in spring training unless you've established that you can do that. So once that hurdle was, I jumped over that hurdle, the team had confidence in me. We did turn double plays, third to first. Absolutely. Almost almost got a third around the horn play with a pitcher I think was bunting.
Triple play, huh?
Yeah, but we got a few third to first double plays, and was able to actually catch a bunch of those little pop-ups that were in foul territory, some on the third base side in foul territory that were popped up in the air and was able to dive and go get. So I literally was almost, eventually, like Keith would have loved, I think, himself, he would have tried to be there too, almost on the dirt, almost. If he's bunting, he's bunting. And if you change his mind, they're doing something that they don't want to do, which is, maybe butcher boy or, kind of chop, but whatever you want to call it, or swing away, and which is not the play they had on. So you've changed their mind for them because of what you're doing. And if they get it down, they're not going to you'll be able to get the lead runner.
Well, Rico also made a lot of noise with his bat with the Mets, and the Mets got Rico from the Detroit Tigers, left-handed power hitter. Would you consider yourself, though, a dead pull hitter? Because I know the Tigers worked with you in trying to take advantage of that porch they had in right field. Was that counterproductive to the kind of hitter you were, them trying to turn you into a dead pull hitter to take advantage of their ballpark?
It definitely was. Yeah, I was the player that scouts will say, the pull power will come later, the power will come later, kind of over in general. But definitely the pull power. I had a little longer swing, didn't transfer my weight too efficiently, so my bat would lag or drag behind, and I'd hit my best bolts to the opposite field, left center. Some of that was just a product of having a long swing, not mechanically efficient at the time. But I learned, and a lot of it was just watching great players at the big league level hit. And it's the best teacher when you're watching, Tony Gwynn. You can go down the line, Chipper Jones, and everyone, Bonds and A-Rod. So you watch those guys and what they do, you kind of pick up a lot of good stuff. And eventually I learned how to transfer my weight better, pull the ball without really trying to pull the ball. So I shortened my swing and actually got more power, which was something I had never been able to do as a young player. But I definitely got in trouble trying to pull it. I needed to stay right up the middle. Use the Lau approach of hit it right back where the ball came from the pitcher, and let the ball spray wherever it goes, it goes. The best advice I got was try to be a good hitter first, and let everything else just kind of happen.
There's so many different approaches to hitting that you hear about these days, and there was a hitting coach with the Mets when Rico got there, Tom McCraw, right?
Yeah, Tommy, yeah.
And I'm going to have to clean this up, but he had a mantra. What Tom McCraw would say about hitting was, see the blank, blank ball, hit the blank, blank ball. Period.
That's right.
Is it that simple for you, even with hitting coaches and video and everything else?
That's very good advice when it's game on. So the first inning, your heart's racing, 38,000 people, and you're facing the Braves, and there's Smoltz, Maddox, Clapp. So, when you get in that moment, you're so nervous or you're so revved up and all the emotions that it's hard to remember all the things that you need to remember. So simplifying it the best you can is the best way to go about it, and that's what Tommy did so well. When you get in the moment, see it and hit it. Trust your training. One thing I always, still to this day, remember Tommy talking to me about was just be loose, have a good rhythm. Like Ken Griffey Jr., he'd always use him as an example. He's always kind of loose, and he had a good rhythm about him. You see it in great hitters today, like Trout. They almost kind of have a slow dance going before the pitch comes. So their body is ready to transfer its weight efficiently. I get stiff sometimes, get really tight. He just be loose, have a good rhythm about you up there. Yeah.
Well, if you think that Tom McCraw had kind of old school values as a hitting coach, manager of the Mets when Rico got there was Dallas Green, who was a personal favorite. We all loved him because he was just an old-time baseball guy. And I don't know, Dallas sadly is gone now, and I don't know how he would have handled the changes in the game today. And since you worked in front offices too, we're going to get to that in a little bit, but what was Dallas Green's impact on you as a big league player, considering you were really just starting out when Dallas was managing?
Yeah, I think personally it was terrific for me. I can go down the list. You know, he checked the box. It gave me a chance when, to play and keep playing when the other player got healthy and returned. He kept running me out there because I was playing okay. So for that, I'm forever thankful. The other part that I really liked was he had that football mentality. It was never good enough. Try harder. You got to play hurt. You have to be tough when things are tough. So I responded to that, having a little bit of a football background.
But did it ever grate on you? I mean, did you ever feel like, well, what is enough?
You know what the only part that grated on me was when other players didn't get it, and then they'd complain about it. And I was still young, so I really couldn't voice my opinion in that way, but that would bother me. I'm like, because I grew up, my dad was like Dallas, and it was, 5 hits, why didn't you get 6? Or, that kind of mentality. And when things are at its toughest, you need to be at your best. So I didn't like it when players would kind of, that was the one thing that grated on me. Dallas didn't. Honestly, no. I mean, I was the first one to come to the ballpark, last to leave. He could talk to me. I could talk to him. I was a good listener. I was a willing listener because I was just getting my start.
It was an interesting time to become a Met because the Mets had had some bad years in the very early 90s, and Dallas was brought in to really settle everything down. And then Joe McIlvaine came back to the organization as the general manager. I guess it was Joe who traded for you with the Detroit Tigers. And so you had a mix of guys that Joe was importing, young players like yourself, and maybe some veterans who were either journeymen or knew they were going to be on the way out sometime pretty soon. Bobby Bonilla was one of them who probably didn't fit long term. Yeah, Joe Orsulak, sure. But what was that almost like being in 2 different clubhouses in those days?
It was. There was a time of transition. So yeah, very well said by you. I think it was perfectly stated that way. The veteran players were good for a young player. That's always a good thing. I had strong-minded, a lot of conviction in how to play the game.
From whom? Like
veterans.
Who was the 1 or 2 teammates?
Joe Orsulak was that way. Bobby Bonilla was great. Bobby sometimes at the time had gotten a bad rap about, he came from Pittsburgh and big contract, but Bobby was very smart. And he was great about like putting his arm around you in the clubhouse or going in the trainer's room where you could talk privately about, hey, is this guy gonna throw you fastballs in that count with a base open? Why are you looking for that pitch? And I'd be like, well, I said I look for fastballs. I want to hit fastballs. He's like, dude, they brought in a lefty and he's gonna throw you a fastball just off the plate. He's gonna tease it. Yeah. But he wants to get you out with this. It could be a slider or a curveball, breaking ball. So if you look for that pitch, one of them is probably going to hover around the plate, and those are great pitches to launch. And I'm like, I never heard that before in my life. And I'm 24 years old, and sure enough, that's what they did. So he knew. He had great leadership from him and John Franco, Sabes from the pitcher's perspective. Jeff Kent was kind of a rising veteran at the time. He was not really the talkative type, but he can kind of give you some golden nuggets in there. Edgardo Alfonzo was one of the smartest baseball people I've ever been around in my life. We had lockers next to each other, and he was a little younger than me, or my age.
He was one of the best players this organization ever developed, really, Edgardo Alfonzo, and he was able to stay through what became some really good years and eventually play in the World Series. You had some injury and later illness problems and wound up getting traded to the Philadelphia Phillies. Had a couple of terrific years with the Phillies, but what happened with the Mets that led up to the trade? Was it simply because of injury and they weren't convinced that you'd be able to stay healthy?
That was definitely part of it. Looking back on it, knowing what I was able to play through, the pain, the tolerance, I guess or the grit and grind of a Dallas Green that he would have liked, and in Philadelphia that I played through. Looking back, I wish I had done that in New York because I was young and scared and thought I had this long career ahead of me, and I thought of a torn labrum. I might ruin my career if I keep trying to play through that, not realizing it was going to stay torn for the next 10 years. Surgery still torn. But you have to play. Oh yeah, I mean it's just.
So you finished your whole career with a torn labrum?
Yeah, I mean it was 3 or 4 cleanups at the end of years or torn cartilage in your knee.
You just played too much football as a kid, fess up.
Yeah, well, the turf at Veterans Field was a little rough at the time, too. But, Dallas made a great point. You got to play hurt. The best you'll feel is the first day of spring training. After that, it's over.
Do you believe that now?
I do, yeah. I tried to be sore coming into spring training. It sounds weird, but I tried to, the last week coming into spring training, or 10 days, I really would grind it, put on the cleats, dig them into the grass, which is something you don't normally do in a gym, right? You don't put the spikes on, but they make your muscles react differently on your legs, and then that affects your back and your body. So, long story short, yeah, you feel great at the beginning of spring. It's over after that first couple days, because usually the third or fourth day, everyone in the clubhouse is in the whirlpool, sore.
What player or players are you still in contact with that develop through your mutual associations with the Mets that might have become lifelong friends, or are there any? And I'll tell you why I'm asking it.
Yeah, the Jerry Dipoto comes to mind right away. I mean, Jerry and I were roommates here in New York when players had roommates. Now everyone's got their own suite. More power to them if you can do it. But Jerry and I would stay up after games, get room service, get a burger and fries, and play Nintendo on the TV in all our road trips. So we developed a strong relationship. Our families are tight. He's now the executive VP and general manager with Seattle Mariners. And I was always, he taught me the front office scouting gig after our playing days. He was kind of a mentor. Again, we're good friends, but he also got into that end of things before I did. So he taught me a lot, continues to this day. And I was always a shadow, following him around when he worked in Colorado, and then Arizona with the Diamondbacks, and then Anaheim with the Angels. The only place I really haven't followed him so far.
Well, there's time.
Was to Seattle, yeah.
There's time, but the
Jerry's the one.
The reason I asked the question is that a couple of weeks ago, we did a couple of these conversations with former Mets teammates Doug Flynn and Joel Youngblood, and they were a generation before you came along. Now, that was really in the early days of free agency, and player movement wasn't quite what it's become now. So you had a lot of guys that stayed together and played for a half dozen years or so, and it was so much fun listening to them tell stories of the guys that they were tight with then and remain friends with now. Do you fear that that's missing in today's game because of how liberal movement is? And were there any others other than Dipoto that you look back on and say, yeah, these were Mets that I'm friends with forever?
Yeah, I mean, I stay in touch from time to time with Scott Rowland, who were good friends in Philly. Right. We had a really tight-knit group there. I was 4 years, long time in baseball, 4 years. So we had the same team for almost 4 years. So that was a little bit of the end of that old school. Mm-hmm. I definitely think it's gone. I mean, I've been in clubhouses the last few years. 2015 was my last time as a coach in the MLB, where players are talking to other players from other teams on their phone and their video. Are you healthy? How you feeling? Good luck tonight over there in Tampa or playing the Rangers. And I'll talk to you soon when we see you. We'll go out and get lunch. I mean, you used to get yelled at if you're running pregame sprints and you met in center field and said hello to the other team. You were fraternizing or whatever.
There were rules against it back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, the player movement aspect started to change it probably with free agency and everything like that. And now the world has shrunk so much that you can talk to anybody at any time in any way. That's had further impact. But the great ones and the great teams and the great players, I think, will always be so competitive, a different type of level of competitiveness where they're unique. And that's probably always been the case if we were to do a study on it. Yeah. And I think that'll always continue. I've never been around a more competitive player than Trout. I mean, he's a happy-go-lucky, loose, and he's got, doesn't want to be overloaded with information. His talent is off the charts, obviously. But that guy, if you say, you're not getting a bag tonight, Trout, you can't. He's 1-3-2 to the plate. Or that's probably what you can't get him. Yeah. I don't think, you probably, don't go. You stay home, and he's going to try, first of all, he'll get on first if he's not on second, third, hit a home run. Yeah. So he's going to get on somehow that night a lot, and that's it. You just pressed his button. He's the most competitive player. I mean, sure, there's a lot of them throughout the years. So the game's changed, but I don't think the DNA in certain players in that regard will always be true.
Okay, so before I let you go, now that you're involved in pursuing your master's cybersecurity, is there a marriage between the analytics within baseball today, what you're learning now, and perhaps putting that to the test, getting back into baseball, using all of that information? Is that in your future, you think?
Yeah, I'm not against that happening at all. I think, but I'm not really a self-promoter or marketer in those terms. But I think I could bring some unique things to the table, whether it's former playing days, field coordinator, farm director, manager, minor leagues, and coach and big league coach. The information quality control stuff that I did a couple years in Anaheim with the big league team was so unique, but now so prevalent across the game, that I think that adding that to my resume was the best thing that could have happened for me at the time. Thinking ahead, do I want to manage and coach? Yeah, managing would be the ultimate thing for me. But 2 kids, and you get torn. I think they're now old enough, my children, where getting back into the game on a more full-time basis would probably be more realistic for my wife and I. But applying the data in a way that it doesn't overload teams and players and coaches, bringing the playing experience to that position, or even if you're managing how to use it, it's critical, because you can definitely, it can be too much, it can be too little. You have to playing experience will teach you what the blend should be, having played, I think. And blend is a good word, I think, with the data and the new, everything the analytics, but at the end of the day, you're diving into dirt, you're toweling off sweat. The weather's different every night, the ballparks are different and unique except for the infield dimensions, shifts and everything. We were shifting before they shifted. You play a guy heavy pull, and you didn't even know it. You didn't need a dot plot. But dot plots can be good if you don't know players, or if there's a unique, you can't get a guy out. The blend. It's all about you can't be all things to all people. You have to be the best you can be for your team at that moment.
Well, as you can hear, the passion is still there, very much there, and we certainly hope to see you back in baseball in the near future. But whatever it is, be happy, be well, and it's great seeing you, Rico.
Thank you, Howie. Yeah, I appreciate it. Great to see you.
Rico Brogna, our guest, as we go one-on-one. I'm Howie Rose. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.